from WWL-TV, the spirit of Louisiana. This is Louisiana's news leader, Channel 4's Eyewitness News, Early Edition.
Good morning, I'm Sally Ann Roberts. We have breaking news this morning out of Plaquemines Parish. An oil rig exploded off the coast of Venice, critically injuring several people. The U.S. Coast Guard is on the scene and is currently pulling people off the rig and out of the water and taking them to the Bel Chasse Naval Air Station. And that's where Jill Hazu joins us with the latest. Jill, what can you tell us?
Well, good morning, Sally, and good morning, everyone. And this is where the Coast Guard says that they are taking people, airlifting people for a waiting EMS that is on the scene here to take them to hospitals for medical attention. Now, officials say 126 people got off of the rig. However, 11 people are still missing. The Coast Guard says that they have 4 cutters en route to the scene, as well as 4 helicopters overhead looking for the missing. Now, they also add that the mission right now is search and rescue. Part of that mission also is to get the fire that is burning on the water as well as the rig out at this time. They do say that they do have crews on standby in Morgan City, because after the search and rescue is over, they will have to try to make it out to that area to determine and evaluate what the environmental impacts of the area are. Since there was diesel fuel on the rig, they're worried about pollution that might be in the area. But again, to recap, 11 people still missing, 8 people critically injured so far, according to the officials, and they are en route as well as overhead at this time looking for any survivors. Reporting from Bel Chasse, Jill Hazu, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
All right, Jill, have you seen very much activity out there? Have you seen family members? What have you seen?
No, we have not been allowed access onto the Naval Air Station at this time. We are across the street from where they are, and since the Naval Air Station is so large, there may be areas that we aren't able to see at this time.
But at this point, 11 people are missing, 8 critically wounded, and we are going to get some more information from the Coast Guard shortly. We'll be checking back with you, Jill. Thank you. Joining us with more on that oil rig explosion in Plaquemines Parish is Chief Petty Officer Mike O'Berry from the U.S. Coast Guard. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Officer O'Berry.
Yes, good morning.
Well, first of all, let's talk about the people that are missing. Last report, 11 people missing. Tell us about the search that's going on for the 11 people missing.
Sure. The Coast Guard, after we got notified, we have 4 helicopters out there searching right now, 2 from our air station here in New Orleans, and also 2 from our aviation training center in Mobile. We also have 4 Coast Guard cutters that are out there helping with the search, and there was a H-144 Ocean Sentry airplane that's providing some overflights as well. The Coast Guard's, obviously right now, our main concern is to search for those 11 or 12 missing crew members from the Deepwater Horizon.
There may be 12 missing?
Yes, they said the last report I got moments ago was it was 11 or 12. They're still working on getting those, all the head counts accurate as they can.
And there's hope that they're on lifeboats somewhere out in the waters.
That is a possibility, yes.
And tell us about the status of the fire right now.
Fire is still burning. There are 5 fireboats on scene, and they are working on that fire. They were at a point where it was a rather large fire, and they had actually backed off, and I believe they're back fighting now. The main thing is with that is make sure it's safe, and that Coast Guard crews can search where they need to search.
And as far as the pollution concern?
Yeah, we have right now the priority is search and rescue and getting that fire put out, but our environmental team at Marine Safety Unit Morgan City is on standby, and as soon as it's safe, they're going to go out there and assess any potential pollution.
And the extent of the injuries, we were told 8 people critically injured. Can you tell us about their injuries?
I've got 7. If there might be one more, I think there was some burn because 2 of the folks were medevac to the Mobile Trauma Center, and which has a burn unit. So, for those 2 that are out there, but the extent of the other injuries I do not have. But we had 7 critical that the Coast Guard was involved in, and the other ones, the other injuries are just different varieties.
And is there any, going back to the status of the fire, is there any possibility that this fire will be contained anytime soon, or is there so much fuel that this may be going on for some time?
It's hard to tell. The crew, they're working very hard. We don't have an estimated time on when the fire might be put out.
And I guess this is an indication of just how dangerous it can be working on the rigs. How quickly was the Coast Guard able to respond?
We got the call at about 10 o'clock last night, and probably within the hour we had the helos up in the air flying out there. Well,
we thank you very much, Senior Chief Petty Officer Michael Berry, for joining us from the Coast Guard and the work you're doing. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Our top story is that oil rig explosion off the coast of Venice in the Gulf of Mexico. And joining us now on the phone is Parish President Billy Nungesser. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
What can you tell us from your perspective about the number of injuries and missing people that you've heard about?
I just got updated by the commander here in Venice. I'm leaving the Coast Guard station now, and all have been accounted for except for 15. There is a lifeboat that was spotted earlier with men on board. They don't know how many men. They're looking for that lifeboat now. It could have all 15 that have been not accounted for on that lifeboat, but they're still searching for that lifeboat at this time. There were 3 critically injured that were airlifted to the Bel Chasse Naval Air Station and taken by ambulance to the hospital. There were no burn victims. Earlier we had heard that 2 of them were severely burned. That is not true. There were no burn victims, and there were 5 other people had minor injuries that they flew in, and the rest of the people will be coming in by boat. One crew boat, I understand, has about 90 men on it, and that boat will be heading for shore shortly. It's about a 4-hour boat ride into shore. But all of the crew that are out there are getting medical attention from 2 research vessels that were able to come on the scene to help rescue people. And they have a doctor that is attending to the people on the scene out there.
Do you have any indication as to what may have caused this explosion?
No, but the rig is leaning badly, and the Coast Guard commander down here, as well as New Orleans, which is heading up the rescue operation, feels like it may go over sometime today because it is leaning tremendously bad. It's still on fire, and the report I got is there's still fire across the top of the water at the scene.
And a very difficult fire to fight.
Yeah, the first and always in these situations is to rescue the people, get them out of harm's way, and I'm sure the company will call in someone else to take care of the fire.
Now, what kind of impact is this going to have on the environment?
I really don't know. I'm not an expert in that field. Sometimes the fire burns off the oil that's on top of the water. Once the fire is put out, if they can contain any additional oil, which they have a real good procedure of doing now in that open water. So I'm sure the company, and we haven't, I'm going to try to locate a company spokesperson when I get back up to the office to be able to answer those kind of questions, because I don't want to speculate on their procedures.
Okay, but at this point, what we know is that there are 15 people unaccounted for right now. You hope that they are on that lifeboat that was spotted. I imagine they're waiting for daylight in order to get a better view.
There's 4 Coast Guard choppers out there, and they are searching for that boat now. So they're not waiting for daylight. They're using searchlights, is what the base has told me. So as soon as we know something, we'll let you know.
All right. Well, Billy Nungesser, we will be checking back with you throughout the morning, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are continuing to follow at this hour that oil rig explosion and fire off the coast of Venice. It is about 50 miles southeast of Venice in the Louisiana in the Gulf of Mexico. It's the Deepwater Horizon. We just spoke to Parish President Billy Nungesser. He says 15 people are missing, But there are hopes that these 15 workers are on a lifeboat, and the Coast Guard is searching right now to try to find them. There were 3 workers critically injured, 5 with minor injuries. The rig is reportedly leaning. The fire is ongoing, and no report on what impact this may have as far as oil spill in the Venice area, but we are following the story and we will bring you more information as it becomes available. An oil rig has exploded off the coast of Venice, critically injuring several people. The U.S. Coast Guard is still searching for more than a dozen missing workers, and they've also begun transporting some of the injured to the Bel Chasse Naval Air Station, and that's where Jill Jesus joins us. Jill, what's the latest?
Well, good morning. And Plaquemines Parish officials, as well as those with the Coast Guard, are telling us or reporting that between 11 and 15 people are missing. Now, they did say that they spotted some men on a lifeboat earlier, but they're still looking for that lifeboat now, and that could be the missing people. But again, that has not been determined as of yet. Plaquemines Parish President Billy Nungesser says that 3 people have been critically injured and 5 people have minor injuries. Some of those have been taken to a hospital in Mobile. Now, also, he says that about 90 men are going to be headed shortly back to shore on a boat, and that a doctor is on the scene providing medical care. Now, the injured, some of those are also being airlifted to the Naval Air Base as well, where we are standing outside of. The Coast Guard says that the priority first is search and rescue and also putting out that fire. They said that they have 4 cutters en route to the scene. They have 4 helicopters hovering overhead trying to find some of those missing, and 5 fireboats on the scene trying to put out the fire that is not only on the rig but also on the water. Now, also, Coast Guard officials tell us that they do have crews on standby out of Morgan City that are going to be evaluating the environmental impacts of this area, whether or not diesel fuel has polluted the water. But they first say that search and rescue is the first mission, and that anywhere between 11 and 15 people are missing, and that about a total of 8 people are suffering from either critical to minor injuries. Reporting from Bel Chasse, Jill Jesus, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
All right, and we will continue to follow this and check back with you for some more information. Thanks, Jill.
From wwl-TV, the spirit of Louisiana, this is Louisiana's news leader, Channel 4's Eyewitness Morning News.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us for another edition of the Eyewitness Morning News on this Wednesday, April 21st, what's become a very busy news day for us.
And we've been following this story all morning long. Jill Jesus is live at the scene.
An oil rig explosion off the coast of Venice has the Coast Guard searching for dozens of people missing. I'm Jill Jesus. I have a live report with more details coming up.
And with the story we first broke on wwl-tv.com earlier this morning, an oil rig explosion in Plaquemines Parish.
That explosion happened about 50 miles southeast of Venice around 10 o'clock last night. Several people were injured in the blast. Right now, the Coast Guard is trying to rescue people off the rig and out of the water, taking them to the Bel Chasse Naval Air Station. That's where our Jill Jesus is with the latest on this story, and still some people missing in this operation.
Right, between 11 to 15 people we're hearing from both the Coast Guard and Plaquemines Parish officials, but they hope that the men that they saw on a lifeboat earlier, they're hoping that those are part of the missing, but they still have yet to determine that. Just spoke to a spokesperson with West Jefferson Hospital. She confirmed that 2 people have been discharged that were involved with this oil rig explosion, and 2 people are still being treated at the hospital. She could not confirm the status of their injuries, though. We spoke to Plaquemines Parish President Billy Nungesser, who said that 3 people had been critically injured and that 5 others had minor injuries. And he also added that about 90 men were being boarded onto a boat to bring back to the coast, and that it would take several hours for that to happen. But he's also added that there is a doctor on the scene providing medical care, as well as people being airlifted back to the naval base for some more treatment. We also hear from Billy Nungesser that some people are being treated at a hospital in Mobile. detail as well. Now, the Coast Guard says their first priority is search and rescue to find those missing men, between 11 and 15 of them. And then they say this next priority is putting that fire out. They say that they have 5 fire boats on the scene, and they've been fighting this fire now for hours. They say after that, they do have crews on standby that will go in and do an evaluation on the environmental impacts. They said on that rig they did have some diesel fuel, so that could have polluted the water. But again, they're not worrying about that at the time. The first priority, they said, is search and rescue between 11 and 15 men. Reporting from Bel Chasse, Jill Hazu, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you, Jill. And joining us now by phone with more on the rig explosion is Senior Chief Petty Officer Michael Berry with the U.S. Coast Guard.
Thank you very much for joining us. And I assume if these guys are on one of these boats, they do have some kind of a transponder or a homing device, so it makes it easier for you guys to find them. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. They should. Most of those boats do have those. Absolutely.
Is it working? Because the search has been going on now for them. Have you been able to pick up any kind of signal?
Nothing's been reported yet, and I think the area with the fire burning the way it is, it does hamper search efforts a little bit. It's one of the reasons we have 4 helos out there, so they can do searches from different angles, and it's a safety issue to make sure they can get as close as they can to do that search.
And usually these rescue boats or pods are pretty big things. They can hold a bunch of people. They're also covered, and the guys should be okay if they got into one of those.
Correct. And the other thing is that a lot of folks are on these work boats that are out there, and the community obviously it would come together. So there were Good Samaritans that had arrived on scene last night and early this morning, and I think you heard early in the report from Jill that they may be brought back on some of those big boats, and some of those they were evacuated to those. So the search is focusing on small area. Maybe there are small rafts. They may be in the water. The Coast Guard's assessing that the entire situation and applying resources to search for these men.
And of course, your priority right now is to rescue. There is a fire that continues to rage, though, at this time, correct?
That is correct. The report we got is there are 5 fireboats on scene battling that blaze right now. And once they get that contained, I heard mentioned before, we will be sending out a team to assess if there is any pollution.
And how massive of an explosion was this? And if it were pretty big, would it give those guys enough time? Because most of the people are accounted for, but for those guys who are still missing, would it have given them time to get on some kind of a rescue boat?
It's hard to speculate on that. We got the report of the explosion and fire, and I think obviously the men that work on these rigs, they do training and do go through safety procedures.
But it was a pretty big blast?
That was enough to make them all have to leave the rig. So we could classify it as a pretty big blast.
And at this point, of course, the fire has it's engulfed the rig, and I'm told that it's leaning.
Yes, report is it's about a 10-degree list. And that's why there's 5 boats there battling it, and and that'll be assessed. Obviously, as daylight comes, we'll get a better assessment of what's going on the water.
So what's the rescue scene out there like right now?
It's busy. Right now, there's upwards of 6 helicopters in the air searching for these guys in a very small area. So you got very professional search and rescue folks from the Coast Guard, as well as some of the other rescue helicopters from some of the medical helicopters are out there as well, helping out. There's a couple that are even on standby at a neighboring rig if we need so. Coast Guard crews have already swapped out crews. They've flown back and have got a new crew and new helicopters out there to maintain this search continuously.
And the good news is that you were able to get out there quickly and also joined by Good Samaritans to aid in the rescue.
Absolutely, and as I said earlier, there's this community, they all know each other. When something like that happens, they're in their boats getting over there to help out.
So I mean, about how many people are out there right now? I mean, you say you've got your vessels, you've got choppers out there, and then other people in the area trying to help out.
Hard to tell. It's not going to be too much that's overwhelming of it. But the Transocean, which owns the Modu's, got boats out there as well. So they're working to help us in the search and to help get a good count of those that are missing and account for all the 126 people.
All right, Mike, thank you.
And you did briefly spot that lifeboat, and you were searching with searchlights, but now with the sun about to come up, that will certainly help.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Mike, thank you very much. We appreciate that. If you can keep us posted on what's going on, we would appreciate that.
I will.
All right, thank you very much. We are continuing our coverage of that big oil rig explosion in Plaquemines Parish.
Jill Hazu joins us now from Bel Chasse with Parish President Billy Nungesser with more on that. Good morning, Jill.
Well, good morning. As far as we know so far, there's still 11 to 15 people missing. Joining us now is Parish President Billy Nungesser, and you said that you've had calls, concerns from relatives who are wondering who those missing people are. Do we have any idea as of yet?
Well, first we got calls from people that have loved ones that work offshore, so we wanted to get the name of the rig out there, and we're hoping the company will soon come up with a phone number that people that have people that work for this company or that were on that rig will be able to call. The 11 to 15 people that are missing, we hope are on that lifeboat that is still missing. They spotted earlier, they know there's people on it, but maybe with the sun coming up now, they'll be able to locate that lifeboat, and hopefully all the people will be accounted for.
And we're still waiting to get to hear back from Transocean, the company in charge of that rig. You worked in with the oil companies. Give us an idea of what it's like, what could be going on out there at this time.
This is a huge rig, so even getting off the facility, it's massive, and it's balanced and floated out there and anchored to the ocean bottom. So it's kept in level by these balusters flooding different chambers. So as it continues to lean more and more, the Coast Guard out of Venice seems to think they may see that rig topple over sometime today, that it's leaning that much. But this is a huge, massive rig. This is not a small platform offshore. This is one of the largest deep water ones out there.
And even though search and rescue is the first priority, what kind of impact beyond that could it have on Plaquemines Parish?
Well, obviously the oil and gas that it brings out of the ground every day to the refineries, the people that work out there until that rig is repaired or recovered and get back online, will have a small impact, but it always will have an impact on the people that come out of other areas that go offshore out of Venice to these facilities.
And 90 people confirmed okay, they're actually on boats trying to get back to shore?
Right, we're not sure exactly where they'll be bringing them in. One crew boat has 90 of the crewmen on it, and there's two research vessels that actually have a small medical facility and a doctor that has treated some of the minor injuries on location out there. But all those boats had continued to search for the missing men, and I'm sure we'll be heading to shore. It's at least a 4-hour boat ride back to shore.
Any idea if they've left yet?
No, I don't know.
Okay, and we know that as far as from West Jeff Hospital, there's 4 people there, 2 have been treated and released. Mobile, you said earlier, is the other hospital that has people?
Mobile is where the other chopper came to assist the Coast Guard. There was an earlier report that some people have been flown to the burn unit in Baton Rouge. That is not true. There's been no confirmed burns on any of the crew members.
Okay, thank you so much, Billy Nungesser.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate your time. Again, still reports of between 11 and 15 people are missing at this time, and the Coast Guard is on the scene off the coast of Venice with 4 cutters as well as helicopters looming overhead trying to find those missing people, and also 5 fireboats are on the scene trying to put out the fire on the rig as well as on the water. Reporting from Bel Chasse, Jill Hazu, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
All right, Jill, thank you very much. And of course, we will be covering this story through the 3 hours of this program and the rest of the day. The story we've been covering all morning long, a big explosion at one of the largest deepwater oil rigs off of Plaquemines Parish.
The rig is located about 50 miles southeast of Venice. Several people were injured in the blast. That happened around 10 o'clock last night. The Coast Guard is rescuing people and taking them to the Naval Air Station in Bel Chasse.
And we have been talking with the Coast Guard and other people, including Plaquemines Parish President Billy Nungesser. Jill Hazu is joining us live in Bel Chasse right now with the latest on this story. Jill, what can you update us on?
Well, good morning, and you hope the daylight that is now coming out will help them in their search. Coast Guard officials tell us that they're still searching for some missing men. Both Plaquemines Parish officials as well as the Coast Guard say between 11 and 15 men are missing from that oil rig. They also add that there was a lifeboat that was spotted earlier. However, they are still searching for that again right now, and they're hoping that those men can be accounted for. Now, this is all just off the coast of Venice, where that oil rig explosion was. We spoke to Plaquemines Parish President Billy Nungesser just moments ago. He said that he's getting calls from relatives who have family members on oil rigs. The name of the rig is the Deepwater Horizon, so he is hoping that officials with the company will eventually put a number out so that people can call to see if their relatives are part of the missing. We are still trying to get in touch and hear back from the company that is in charge of that oil rig. Also, too, after the search and rescue is over, that is the first priority of the Coast Guard. However, they said that they are going to try to go out and judge the environmental impacts since there was diesel fuel on that rig. A concern is the pollution of the water, and according to Billy Nungesser, he said that the impact of this will be significant.
Very badly. The Coast Guard has concerns that it will fall over, but the fire is still burning. They're fighting it now.
What kind of impact is this going to have on Plaquemines Parish?
Well, it'll have an impact because whatever that rig produced in oil and gas, that production will be shut down for some time. But the workers and the people that go out of Venice that worked on that rig, it'll be a minimal impact, but it will impact some of the people that worked out on that rig.
And Nungesser adds that this is a huge facility which will be a big loss to the company as well as the oil and gas industry. We're still, again, trying to get in touch with that spokesperson. We did speak to a spokesperson over at West Jefferson Hospital that confirmed that 2 people were discharged from their hospital and that 2 people were still being treated for injuries related to this oil rig explosion. However, they could not confirm their status at this time. We've been told from reports from Plaquemines Parish officials as well as the Coast Guard that 8 people have been injured, ranging anywhere from critical to minor injuries. And of course, we will continue to follow the story and bring you more information about the missing as well as the injured as those details become available. Reporting from Bel Chasse, Jill Jesus, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
And topping our news, we've been telling you about this all morning. A fire following a big explosion on an oil rig off the coast of Venice is still burning at this hour.
The explosion happened around 10 o'clock last night and critically injured 3 people. The U.S. Coast Guard is searching for more than a dozen missing workers.
And Jill Jesus has been down in Bel Chasse at the Naval Air Station all morning with more on what's happening at this hour and any news on those guys they're still looking for.
No new news. Authorities are telling us that they're still searching for those 11 to 15 people that are missing. You hope that the daylight that is now out will help them in their efforts. Again, between 11 and 15 people are missing. Now, officials say that they spotted some men on a lifeboat earlier. However, they're not sure if those are the missing men, and they're trying to locate them again now. They also say about 90 men are on rescue boats that are headed for the coast shortly. That would take at least 4 hours to get them back to shore. They also say that there is a doctor giving medical care, and any people that are injured more significantly are being airlifted either to the base here where EMS awaits them to bring them to local hospitals, or are being airlifted for other treatment as well. Now, we also talked to a spokesperson over at West Jefferson Medical Center that says that they did treat 2 people and discharged them. However, they still have 2 people under their care. They could not give us the status of those injuries. Now, again, those efforts to find the missing, Coast Guard officials tell us they do have helicopters in the air as well as boats in the water to try to locate those missing 11 to 15 people. Plaquemines Parish President Billy Nungesser tells us that 8 people were injured, ranging from critical injuries to minor injuries. And while they say, and while all this is going on, even though search and rescue is the first priority, there's also crews out there that are fighting this blaze that's not only on the rig but also on the water, and they're trying in their efforts to get the fire out. No timeline has been given for how long that could take, and Nungesser says the rig is not only a big loss for the company but also for the oil and gas industry.
It'll be a huge salvage project. The size of this rig is incredible, so it's going to be a massive recovery, or trying to recover that or get it back right-sided up.
And we're still waiting back to hear from the company Transocean to hear the status of the missing, as well as the status of the fire as well. That oil rig, we're being told, is called Deepwater Horizon. Parish President Billy Nungesser tells us that he had relatives calling to try to find out the name of that rig. And also, two crews are on standby, according to the Coast Guard, in Morgan City. What they're waiting for is the area to be secure enough so that they can go out and see whatever environmental impacts as far as pollution it may have on the water. Reporting from Bel Chasse, Jill Hazu, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
All right, Jill, thank you very much.
And joining us now by phone with more on the explosion is Senior Chief Petty Officer Mike O'Berry with the U.S. Coast Guard.
And Mike, has anything changed since we talked to you last? And the other thing I want to know is everybody off the rig now?
Yeah, everybody. The report we got originally was that the 126 people had evacuated the rig, and that was very early on. That was last night. And the Coast Guard continues their search, and with these 11 to 12 missing, there may be assessments of exactly where those members were.
How is the search going this morning for the missing men?
It's going well. Coast Guard has 4 helicopters in the air. There are 2 Coast Guard cutters on scene right now. There are 3 more en route. There are also 2 other some air ambulance helicopters and stuff are standing by, and they are conducting sorties in and near that rig and on searching for these 11 crew members.
And the lifeboats, or these safety pods, escape pods that are on these rigs, are very sophisticated. They do have radio equipment and things like that in them. Should we read anything into this that you all have not picked up a signal from one of those yet?
I think it's because with these escape pods, we don't have notification yet that they actually were in some of these escape pods. I think they're still analyzing and assessing all that.
So these guys may be in the water. We don't know if they're in a pod or a lifeboat or something like that.
That's correct. And we're searching, taking all those options are being in consideration for the search.
And you said earlier, though, that a lifeboat was seen at some point?
We got a report that there was one, but early this morning, I think there were some of the crew members that were on the lifeboat were counted as part of that 115.
Also, you said that there were some other boats in the area that may have picked up some people. Is everybody on all the boats accounted for? I mean, we do have an accurate number?
Yeah, the last number we got was, and it comes with the 115 people have been accounted for, so we're still searching for that 11.
Okay, so likely they are in the water somewhere.
Possibly, yes.
And tell us the status of the fire right now.
Fire is still burning. There are 5 fireboats on scene working to put that fire out. The rig is listing a little bit, about 10 degrees.
Is it in danger of toppling over?
It's hard to speculate at this time, but obviously it's always a concern if a rig is listing, and with a fire of this nature, we're taking every precaution to be safe, and it may even hinder the search a little bit. But that's why we have a number of crews out there that can, they're flying around being safe and doing the best they can to search for these 11.
And for some of these guys who have you talked to some of the people who were on the rig and got rescued, and then have they said the explosion maybe threw people off, or they jumped into the water, or do we know the status of that yet?
I haven't gotten status on actual interviews with crew members. Most of the members were transported to a neighboring rig, and where the company is going to coordinate getting those guys taken back to shore and that nature. There may be some interviews conducted while they're in flight, but we just haven't gotten word here of what those interviews may have uncovered.
And the Deepwater Horizon, what company is this affiliated with?
Transocean owns the rig, and British Petroleum owns a lease on the work.
And have you been in contact with the company? I mean, obviously they're cooperating fully.
Oh, absolutely, yes. And they're coordinating because the fireboats and stuff are coordinated through them. And then the actually getting the crew members that were not medically evacuated back to port is their responsibility, and they're working on that, making sure that can get done quickly. And
that's several hours to get back. I mean, because this thing's what, like 50 miles offshore?
Yes.
And we've heard from Parish President Billy Nungesser that family members are frantic. They want information. Mm-hmm. What can family members do to find out if their loved one is on that boat that's maybe 3 hours away?
Right. We do have a number that they can call that they can get updates on. That's area code 832-587-8554.
Give it to me one more time, Mike.
You bet. 832-587-8554.
And that's for family members to call to find out. Do you have IDs of some of the guys who were on the boats?
We don't here, but the hotline was just set up as
okay.
a
but at least they can get some information on what you know.
I'm sorry, what's that?
At least they can get some information on what you guys know. This is a Coast Guard hotline?
No, this is through the company.
Oh, the company hotline.
Yeah, so
okay.
they'll have information on all the workers that were on board.
Okay.
Okay, and why don't you give that number out again one more time?
Sure, it's area code 832-587-8554.
All right, Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll be calling you back, and keep us updated. If you guys see anything in the water, please let us know.
Absolutely.
The U.S. Coast Guard is still looking for at least 11 to 15 workers who are said to be missing. They've also been taking some of the injured to the Bel Chasse Naval Air Station, and that's where Jill Hayes is joining us with the latest. And the search, the big news is the search does continue for those 11 to 15 men, right?
Right, 11 to 15 men. That's the two different reports that we've heard from both the Coast Guard as well as Plaquemines Parish. They are still in the water as well as in the air looking for those men. And they do tell us that earlier that this morning they did see a lifeboat that had some men on it. They are not sure if those are the 11 to 15 men, but they are still looking for them now. Now, here is some video that the Coast Guard just released moments ago showing them actually people off of that rig. There was 126 people on the rig at the time. Some of those are missing, between 11 and 15. Others, about 90, are on a boat and they're getting ready to head back to shore. But again, that could take several hours before they reach the shore since they are so far off the coast of Venice. Now, 8 people have been injured. Those injuries go from either critical to moderate injuries, according to Plaquemines Parish President Billy Nungesser. We're also told that some of those that were injured were airlifted to the base here in Bel Chasse before being taken to some local hospitals. We spoke to West Jefferson Hospital earlier that said that they treated 2 and discharged them, but they also have 2 under their care at this time. They could not give us the status of their injuries. Now, while all this is going on with the fire, with search and rescue, they also have some fireboats out there, about 5, trying to attack this fire, which is both on the rig as well as on the water, and they're not sure of what time that this fire will go out. Billy Nungesser told us earlier that the rig is actually leaning and that they are worried that it could topple over in their fire efforts to put out the blaze there. He said that this is going to be a large-scale salvage mission to try to recover the rig, to try to get it uprighted again, and it's going to be a major impact to not only the company Transocean but also to the oil and gas industry.
You know, the oil companies do a real good job of doing all kind of testing and drills to do that, and hopefully most of that will have burned off with the fire, and I'm sure the company will be out there to clean up any of the environmental problems.
And the Coast Guard told us earlier that they do have crews on standby in Morgan City that after the blaze is put out will go out there to see what kind of impact it has to the environment, whether or not there is pollution out there. Now, this is really important. A number has been set up by Transocean, according to the Coast Guard. So if there's any family members concerned about their relatives that may have been on that oil rig, they can call this number, 832-587-8554. Again, that's 832-587-8554. That's for any information related to people that may have been on the rig at that time. And again, we're still waiting to hear back from the public information officers with Transocean to hear more about their efforts in this rescue mission. Reporting from Bel Chasse, Jill Hayes, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
All right, Jill, thank you very much. It is amazing to watch that heroic effort by the Coast Guard in getting those folks off that rig.
And our prayers are with family members as they're waiting to hear about those who are missing at this point.
All right, there is a big story today, that oil rig explosion off the coast of Venice. This morning, the Coast Guard is looking for between 11 to 15 people who are missing after an oil rig explosion in the Gulf of Mexico.
The explosion happened at around 10 o'clock last night aboard the Transocean's Deepwater Horizon rig that's about 50 miles southeast of Venice. Several people were injured in the blast. They were airlifted to Bel Chasse Naval Air Station. Jill Hayes joins us now from Bel Chasse with more. And Jill, some more information, some new information?
Not much has changed as of yet, Sally Ann. We just got off the phone with the Coast Guard, who told us they're still searching for that lifeboat in hopes of having those missing 11 to 15 men found on it. It was spotted earlier, however, they have not been able to locate it again. The Coast Guard tells us they have 2 cutters in the water and 4 helicopters overhead looking for those people. This is video from the Coast Guard that they shot earlier of them rescuing men from that rig. Now, Plaquemines Parish President Billy Nungesser says 8 people have been injured. Their injuries range anything from critical to moderate. We spoke to a spokesperson with West Jefferson Hospital earlier this morning, and she also confirmed moments ago that their status, nothing has changed with them as far this morning. They did have 2 people who were treated and released this morning, as well as 2 people who remain in their care. They say they're not allowed to tell us their status of those that are injured. Now, Nungesser says about 90 people were on rescue boats waiting to come back to shore, which could take several hours, being that this rig was about 50 miles off the coast of Venice. We're still waiting to hear back from Transocean, the company that owns the rig, as well as BP, who owns the lease, information on their status, where those people are in returning to shore, and who are the missing, and what are their status as well. Now, the Coast Guard is also has crews out there with 5 fireboats trying to put out this blaze. That's what they tell us, and the Coast Guard says that they do have a crew on standby in Morgan City that is going to, as soon as it's safely to do so, go out to the water where this rig is located and see if there's any environmental effects, environmental impacts as well, concerning pollution. And Nungesser says that overall this is going to be a massive salvage operation.
It's not a normal small offshore platform. This is the deep water. You know, these facilities are huge, and it'll be a great loss to the company and to the oil industry.
And Nungesser told us earlier he has had people, relatives of those who live, who work on rigs, call them for information. BP is actually the company that owns the lease, has set up a hotline for family members to call to check on their family members. They can call 832-587-8554. Let me give you that number again, 832-587-8554. Reporting from Bel Chasse, Jill Jesus, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
All right, Jill, thank you very much. And we do have the Coast Guard on the line right now, and they're continuing efforts to find these missing men.
We have Senior Chief Petty Officer Michael Berry on the phone with us with the latest. And what can you tell us? Has there been any change in the situation?
None of this time. The Coast Guard's still out there searching for 11 missing crew members, and that's kind of our focus right now. And I know there's a lot of different things going on. We got the fire that they're trying to put out. For the Coast Guard, all of our resources are towards search and rescue for those 11 missing crew members. And
right now, Mike, how many choppers do you have out there?
There are 4.
4 choppers, and how big of an area are you?
It's pretty concentrated right around the unit, the drilling rig.
And so you're assuming that in the blast, either people were thrown off or they jumped off into the water to get away from the flames.
Those are all possibilities, but right now, we can't speculate on where they may be. We're just gonna, based on the evidence we have, is just, continue to search.
But at this time, it does appear, at least in your estimation, that if they were in a lifeboat, because they are pretty sophisticated, those escape pods, that you would have heard some word from them.
That's a possibility, but even if in a blast they could have been on the boat, maybe something got damaged or something like that. So it's hard to. You never know. We work hard to save lives, and we're out there to search for those missing crew members.
Yes, and still hope right now for these missing crew members, and it has now been, we're saying 11 to 15, but you've now confirmed that there are 11 missing. Is that correct?
That's the number we had. The original count that was reported to us is there were 126 crew members on board, and they've been able to account for 115, so there's 11 that we are searching for.
And now you've been searching since what time last night?
We got the call at 10 p.m. last night, and our helos were in the air within the hour. So we've been searching since about 11:30 last night.
And some of that rescue footage we showed of the heroic efforts by the Coast Guard getting those guys off the rig. About what time was that?
I'm not sure. That was early this morning.
Oh, it was?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And these were the most injured people that you were airlifting at that point?
That is correct. The Coast Guard, they were on those workboats that had responded, and we had flight surgeons assess injuries and would medevac people accordingly.
And this is what the Coast Guard trains for, and also what the people on these rigs train for as well. Mm-hmm. Talk about the firefighting that's going on. Are you making any headway in fighting that fire?
I know that there are five fireboats out there working on this. I haven't gotten a report on what the status is. Most of the firefighting is coordinated through either British Petroleum or through the other company, and so we're focused just on the SAR aspect. And we have some visual of that. And we can get some video, but the firefighting. I think they're working just as hard as everybody else.
Yeah, and then that is, as you said, a separate operation. You guys are in the search and rescue business and not the firefighting business right now.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike. We appreciate that, and just keep us posted. But we can confirm it is 11 people now missing, and the rest have all been accounted for.
That's it.
And do you know how? And you said how many were seriously injured?
7.
7. Okay.
Or seven were critical.
7 critical.
Backed out.
All right, because we've been under the impression that 3 were critically injured, but we now know that there were 7 critically injured crew members.
Correct.
All morning continues to play out in the Gulf of Mexico. The Coast Guard is searching for 11 people that are still missing after an oil rig explosion.
The explosion happened around 10 o'clock last night, about 50 miles southeast of Venice, aboard the Transocean's Deepwater Horizon rig. Several people were injured in that blast, and they were airlifted to the Bel Chasse Naval Air Station. We were told that 7 people were critically injured in that blast.
It was apparently a large explosion on this big rig about 50 miles southeast Venice, out in the Gulf of Mexico. The Coast Guard has 4 choppers out there right now. You can see the flames from that. This is a picture from the Coast Guard. This is a rescue effort that was going on where they airlifted some of the more critically injured people on that rig. The Coast Guard said, as Sally mentioned, 7 people critically injured in that explosion, 126 people on board that oil rig last night.
And at this point, 11 crew members are missing. They are hoping to find them in a lifeboat. There was a lifeboat spotted earlier, and they're hoping to locate that lifeboat.
Or if they're in the water, in the water.
Yeah. And the search is going on, but the injured were airlifted to the naval base in Bel Chasse earlier this morning and were hospitalized. There were some minor injuries as well. And we're also told that there are about 90 crew members on board a ship that will be making
either a ship or several boats coming ashore.
But right now, let's go back out to Jill Hazu in Bel Chasse.
Hey, Sally Ann and Eric, and I just heard you talking about those 90 people on the rescue boats. Spoke to the spokesperson with Transocean. They're the company that owns that oil rig, and he said that they're still working out the logistics as to where those people will come on board. Again, there's several people on the boat. He said they could come in to Port Fourchon. They could come in somewhere in the New Orleans area. He said that they're just working out a plan right now and didn't have that information when we spoke to him just moments ago. He did say that firefighters are on the water trying to put out that blaze that's still going on the rig. It's a massive blaze as well as on the water. He says that 11 people are missing out of that 126 that were on the rig at the time of the explosion. Did get off, but they're still missing 11 people. And he says that 7 people are injured. He said that not all of them were critically injured. However, he said he could not tell us the extent of those injuries, probably due to HIPAA laws. Some of the video you're seeing right now is of the Coast Guard when they rescued people earlier this morning off of that rig. We also have some video of when they airlifted people to Bel Chasse Naval Air Station and then possibly to West Jeff Hospital. We spoke to someone with West Jefferson Hospital, one of the spokespeople, and they said that 2 people had been treated and released this morning while 2 others were still under their care. They could not give us the status of their injuries. Again, fireboats are still out there trying to fight this blaze, trying to put out the fire. They're also still looking for that lifeboat that was reported seen earlier, but they're still trying to locate it once again. They're hoping it does have the 11 people that are reported missing at this time. And A little later, after search and rescue has gone on and after they can put out that blaze, officials do tell us that they have a crew on standby, a Coast Guard crew on standby in Morgan City that's going to come in after the fact and try to evaluate any kind of environmental impacts that this has had on the waters off of Plaquemines Parish as far as pollution. Billy Nungesser, who's worked with oil companies for several years prior to being the president, said that maybe a possibility is that the diesel fuel has burned off since this fire is so massive and it won't have as big as an impact on the environment. But again, search and rescue continuing, 11 people still missing, and Transocean telling us that 7 people have been injured. Reporting for Bel Chasse, Jill Hazu, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
And Jill, just to clear that up, the Coast Guard had told us a little while ago it was 7 critically injured. You're getting different information from Transocean?
Right, I think that there's just so much information coming in at this point that the different officials that we talk to do have some differing information. Basically, 11 people missing and 7 people injured, and those injuries could range from critical to moderate. We heard at one time that it was 3 critically injured and 4 others that had minor injuries, but at this time 7 people altogether is what everyone has agreed upon are injured. Whether or not critical or not, that's debatable according to the different sources we're getting information from.
Did Transocean indicate that they had made contact with family members?
They did not say that at this point if they've made contact with family members. Now, BP, who owns the lease, they're the company that has set up the hotline for people. I know we have that number that we can put on screen for people to call and to get information about their family members. But at this time, it seemed like they were still more concentrated in working on the plan as to how they're going to get the people that are on the water right now, trying to get them on shore.
All right, thank you. And that number is, we'll put that back up again for family members who need information, 832-587-8554.
From wwl-TV, the spirit of Louisiana, this is Louisiana's news leader. Channel 4's Eyewitness News at noon.
These pictures show the huge explosion that rocked an offshore oil drilling platform in the Gulf of Mexico about 50 miles southeast of Venice, Louisiana, sending fire into the sky and crew members into the Gulf. While most of the 126 people on board that rig were rescued after the explosion, the Coast Guard says it is searching for a dozen people who are still missing. Good afternoon, I'm Eric Paulson. Thank you for joining us today. There are still some conflicting reports about just how many people are unaccounted for after that big explosion on the oil rig, the Deepwater Horizon. As of now, the Coast Guard says there are still missing workers and search and rescue operations are continuing in the Gulf. The explosion happened last night about 50 miles southeast of Venice. Several people were injured in the blast, and some were airlifted to West Jefferson Hospital. Jill Hazu is joining us at West Jefferson, where our coverage begins. And Jill, what can you tell us?
Well, a West Jefferson spokesperson tells us, Eric, that all 4 people that were treated here at the hospital have been released for their injuries related to the oil rig explosion. Now, this all started around 10 o'clock last night. That's when 126 people were on board Transocean's Deepwater Horizon when it exploded. The Coast Guard says 12 people are still missing, while 99 people were rescued. They are now on a boat. They are waiting to leave from that area off the coast of Venice, and they are expected to get into Port Fourchon around 8 o'clock tonight. Now, 15 people have been treated at area hospitals and 4 remain at University Hospital, according to a spokesperson. We do not know the of those people's injuries. Now, this is what it looked like earlier this morning. The Coast Guard spent much of the night and the morning rescuing people from the burning rig and in the water. Officials say 8 people were injured, their injuries ranging from critical to moderate. The Coast Guard tells us that 5 fireboats remain on the water, still trying to put out that massive fire on the rig and in the water. And Plaquemines Parish President Billy Nungesser says this morning that the rig was leaning in danger of collapsing.
It'll be a huge salvage project. The size of this rig is incredible. So it's going to be a massive recovery, or trying to recover that or get it back right-sided up.
And the Coast Guard tells us that 2 investigators are en route or already may be there from Morgan City. One is going to determine what the cause of this blaze and explosion was, and while the others tries to figure out any remaining or any potential environmental impacts from this oil rig explosion. Now, also a phone number was set up by BP. Those are the people that lease the land out there, or at least the water, that area out there. They have set up a phone number for any family members that are worried about their relatives that may have been on that rig. The phone number is 832-587-8554, and the Coast Guard is expected to hold an afternoon news conference where we'll give you more details as they become available. Reporting from Marrero, Jill Hazu, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
And Jill, among some of the conflicting reports we got this morning, the Coast Guard had said earlier that several people were injured critically. Do we know the extent of the injuries?
Well, we know that the 4 that were here have already been treated and released, so you would assume that their injuries were minor. However, there are 4 more at University Hospital, and they're not telling us the extent of their injuries. We did hear originally between 7 and 8 people injured, ranging from critical to moderate, so you may want to, well, you may not want to assume, but the people that are still at University Hospital have been there for some time this morning.
All right, Jill, thank you very much. And to clear things up, with what's happening in the search and rescue operations, we have Senior Chief Petty Officer Mike O'Berry on the phone with us right now. And there have been some conflicting reports. Earlier this morning, we heard anywhere from 11 to 15 people missing. Now we know there are 11 people missing. There have also been reports that maybe all have been accounted for, 12 rather. We all know there have been some reports that maybe all have been accounted for, but that is not true.
Yeah, Eric, the Coast Guard is still searching for the 12. There had been some reports that were out there that a crew boat had been found, but the Coast Guard has not been able to substantiate that fact. So we are still searching for 12 missing crew members, and we got 4 helos on the air doing that, and also 2 cutters that are out there helping with the search.
And Mike, do we have to assume all these guys are in the water? Because obviously, have all the life pods or lifeboats been accounted for?
I'm not sure if they've all been actually accounted for, because some of the imagery that you've seen, obviously this is a dramatic fire,
yeah.
And so part of the search too is going through all that and doing some of the investigative type work and seeing where could they possibly be in that type of thing. So they're looking at all options. Could they be in the water? Maybe there is a life raft that is still out there, and the Coast Guard is going to continue to search all options. And
we had said this morning. Those escape pods are pretty sophisticated units that have all kinds of radio equipment on board. So one would assume that if they were in one of those, that you probably would have heard from them, or at least found one of the boats.
The likelihood would have been good, yes, but you never know. Every rescue is different. And sometimes things that should work, they may not. So that's why we're looking at all different things to try and find these 12 missing crew members.
And so right now, I assume you guys feel that these guys are either on the rig or in the water or someplace.
Yeah, we're typically, when we're doing our searches, we're not going to, it's hard. We try not to speculate where they may be. We're going to search all areas and see if we can locate them.
And how wide of an area are you searching right now?
The area right now is pretty close to the rig. We're not spread out too far. It's pretty concentrated.
And it's 4 helicopters and how many boats?
2 cutters, yes, sir. 2.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mike. We appreciate that, and keep us posted on what's going on with that search throughout the day.
We will do.
From wwl-TV. The spirit of Louisiana. This is Louisiana's news leader. Channel 4's Eyewitness News at 5.
Good evening. I'm Dennis. Sheltering Angela's off tonight. Most of the 126 workers on that oil rig that exploded in flames in the Gulf of Mexico have been accounted for. But this afternoon, the Coast Guard said it's searching for 11 others who are still missing. The explosion took place last night about 50 miles southeast of Venice. Coast Guard officials here in New Orleans held a news conference a short time ago with the latest update on the search. Paul Murphy begins our coverage and joins us live now with the latest. Paul?
Dennis, the Coast Guard described a rather grim situation a short while ago with 11 of the 126 workers from that burning offshore oil platform unaccounted for and missing at this hour. And according to the Coast Guard, they still have no idea where those missing workers might be. Now take a look at these pictures. They were taken of the Deepwater Horizon by a ship's captain working in the area at the time of the explosion. Fire response boats surround the rig 50 miles southeast of Plaquemines Parish, trying to put out the flames, which can be seen for miles. 17 crew members were medevaced from the scene. According to the rig operator, Transocean, most of the injured had broken bones, smoke inhalation, or burns. The drilling platform is under contract to British Petroleum. We are told that the rig is still burning at this hour. Transocean calls it a well blowout, and a company spokesman says there were signs of a problem before the explosion around 10 last night.
There's undoubtedly some abnormal pressure buildup in the marine riser, which comes from the seabed, from the blowout preventer stack to the rig. And obviously, hydrocarbons under pressure, gas or oil, or got into the riser, and as it came up the riser, expanded rapidly and ignited.
We continue the search and rescue case. The 11 people are unaccounted for, and we will continue the search and rescue case until it's reasonable that we might not find anybody out there. But we will stay. We have an active search and rescue case.
And Transocean confirms that the rig is still listing at this hour, but the company is hoping to be able to put out that fire and salvage the rig before it sinks or topples over. As you heard the Coast Guard, right now the main focus is finding those missing 11 workers, and that search and rescue effort, we're told, will go through the evening. We're live downtown, Paul Murphy, Channel 4 Eyewitness News. Dennis?
All right, Paul, thanks. Also, a hotline has been set up for family members looking for any information on workers who may have been on the rig at the time of the explosion. That long-distance phone number is 832-587-8554. And dozens of the oil rig workers who survived the explosion are on a boat right now. They're heading to Port Fourchon and are expected to arrive there later this evening. That's where Lucy Bustamante joins us live now with the latest. Lucy?
Dennis, about 94 crew members that were on that vessel are supposed to arrive in Port Fourchon at about 8 o'clock this evening, is what we are hearing from the Coast Guard and also the police department at Port Fourchon. We're standing here in the intersection of LA 1 and Highway 3090. All of the traffic that comes from Port Fourchon comes in and out of this intersection right here. So the family members that have been told to report here at 8 o'clock or sooner, actually, we've been seeing some of them already come through in and out. They have been told to come here. This is where their family will be. As far as the 11 workers that are still missing, those families, according to Transocean Limited out of Houston, will be put in a New Orleans hotel in downtown New Orleans so that they stay close and will be able to receive information as they get it. Right now, we do not know much more about the 94 and what time exactly they will be here, but we will head down there in just a little while and hopefully talk to some family members. We already met one family earlier who told one of our workers here that they were very frustrated because they had not gotten a lot of information since 10 o'clock last night. So hopefully they have learned some more within the last hour, given the press conference at 3 o'clock. We will report to you every piece of information as soon as we get it. For now, live at Port Fourchon, Lucy Bustamante, Channel 4 Eyewitness News. Dennis?
All right, Lucy, thanks. And we'll have more on this developing story as we get more information.
This is Louisiana's news leader. Channel 4's Eyewitness News at 6.
These pictures show the magnitude of the explosion that has the Coast Guard crews searching the Gulf of Mexico for 11 missing workers. They were on the oil rig Deepwater Horizon late last night when it erupted in flames, tossing 126 workers into the water. This afternoon, the stark reality sets in when a Coast Guard official admits, quote, they have no idea where they are. Good evening, I'm Dennis Woltering. Angela has the night off. 18 hours after the explosion, as the investigation and search continue, family members of the survivors are waiting to see their loved ones. And for the relatives of those who are still missing, there is hope, but also a great deal of fear and concern. Lucy Bustamante spoke to one missing crewman's family in Port Fourchon, where the families of the rig's crew are gathering. We begin our coverage now with her. Lucy?
Well, Dennis, I talked to the Rostow family just moments ago. They're desperate for information, saying that they drove 4 hours from Mabel, Mississippi, just to come to Port Fourchon, not knowing much of anything. Today, the wife of Shane Rostow got a phone call at 2:30 this afternoon asking if her husband had a living will. It was a Transocean Limited company worker. This is Natalie Rostow. She showed us a picture of Shane. Together they have a 3-year-old son who stayed home in Mississippi. They're saying that the details and the facts are just very hard to come by. They are praying that he is one of the 94 that actually shows up on the vessel. However, they have been told he is one of the 11, and right now they are just praying for more and more positive information.
It's not even words, can't even describe knowing that your son's out or where he's at, and then you see him keep showing it on TV, the fire and everything, and it's just, it's a hard thing to describe.
Shane Rostow has been working for Transocean for 4 years now, and while his mother, Denise Arnold, says that he's had some issues with the company in the past, it has been very small issues, never anything as dramatic as what happened last night. However, they are still remaining hopeful and in a very agonizing wait. We will bring you much more information as we learn through the night. Once again, the 94 members that did survive, apparently they are coming on a vessel at 8 o'clock this evening. For now, live in Port Fourchon, Lucy Bustamante, Channel 4 Eyewitness News. Dennis.
All right, Lucy, thanks. The explosion took place last night about 50 miles southeast of Venice. The Coast Guard says most of the 126 workers on that oil rig that exploded have been accounted for, and now it's turning its attention to the search and rescue mission. Paul Murphy continues our coverage and joins us live now with the latest from the Coast Guard. Paul?
Dennis, the Coast Guard briefed the media on that offshore well explosion late this afternoon, and according to local commanders, a search and rescue operation is underway at this hour. And according to rescuers, they apparently have no idea right now where those missing 11 crew members may be. The Coast Guard described a rather grim scenario where 11 of the 126 workers are missing from the Deepwater Horizon, which continues to burn out of control. These pictures were taken by a ship captain working in the area at the time of the explosion. Fireboats surround the rig 50 miles southeast of Plaquemines Parish. Right now, they are trying to put out the flames, which can be seen for miles. According to the owner of the rig, Transocean, there were signs of a problem before the well blew out and caught fire around 10 last night.
There's undoubtedly some abnormal pressure buildup in the marine riser, which comes from the seabed, from the blowout preventer stack to the rig. And obviously hydrocarbons under pressure, gas or oil, or got into the riser, and as it came up the riser, expanded rapidly and ignited.
17 workers were medevaced to local hospitals, including West Jefferson Medical Center. Most of the injuries included smoke inhalation, broken legs, or burns. Some of the injuries are life-threatening, but most are minor, and some workers have been treated and released. According to the Coast Guard, right now the top priority is finding the missing workers.
We continue the search and rescue case. The 11 people are unaccounted for, and we will continue the search and rescue case until it's reasonable that we might not find anybody out there, but we will stay. We have an active search and rescue case.
Rear Admiral Mary Landry says the Coast Guard is equipped to continue the search and rescue through the night. Meanwhile, the U.S. Minerals Management Service is also on scene to help coordinate the cleanup. The rig is under contract with British Petroleum. We are told that the platform is listing, but Transocean expects to put out the fire before the rig sinks or topples over. A BP spokesman says right now, pollution from the well blowout is expected to be minimal.
If there is any pollution at the moment, we believe it is minor pollution because most of the oil and gas is burning, but that does have the potential to change.
For 11 missing crew members continues at this hour. As you heard, rescuers are somewhat troubled by the fact that so far there is no sign of survivors, and we are told at this hour that rig continues to burn out of control. We're live downtown. Paul Murphy, Channel 4 Eyewitness News. Dennis?
All right, Paul, thanks. The owner of a local catering business that services the Deepwater Horizon oil rig says all of her employees are accounted for, and she hopes all of the rig workers are found safe. The owner of Art Catering, a firm based in Bel Chasse, services 26 rigs in the Gulf, including the oil rig that is still burning. 5 of her employees who were on the rig are safe in New Orleans, and the other 9 are on the rescue boat headed to Port Fourchon. The company handles catering, bakers, stewards, and housekeeping for the rigs. She says her heart is with all of the workers on the rig.
Everyone, we oil industry is just very, very unique, and it's a family. It's not just because mine are okay, that they're all concerned about everyone out there and what people are going through.
Brenda Hingle says everyone who works on the rig undergoes extensive safety training, and this is the first time anything like this has happened since she has been in the business.
From wwl-TV, the spirit of Louisiana, this is Louisiana's news leader, Channel 4's Eyewitness News Night Watch.
Good evening, I'm Mike Hoss. The search is ongoing tonight for 11 missing workers from an oil rig explosion in the Gulf last night. 17 people were injured, 4 critically. It happened just after 10 o'clock last night aboard the Deepwater Horizon rig. That's just about 50 miles south of Venice. Coast Guard crews are holding out hope that the missing workers escaped in one of the platform's covered lifeboats. Lucy Bustamante is live in Port Fourchon, where workers are expected to arrive later tonight. Lucy?
That's right, Mike. We are finding out from sources that are close to the investigation and also the arrival of these particular crewmen that 94 survivors are now supposed to arrive at midnight. Earlier, the families thought it was going to be around 8 o'clock in the evening, but apparently they're only moving at 12 knots, which is pretty slow, and they had to come all the way around Venice and into the Gulf of Mexico, through the Gulf of Mexico, and here at Port Fourchon. Let me show you. We are standing right in front of the only road that you can drive to come in and out of the port. They are supposed to have buses that are going to pick up the crewmen over at the seaport. The C stands for Schwest. Gary Schwest owns that port. They have a contract with BP Oil. But earlier today, we spoke to the Rostow family. Shane Rostow is one of the 11 missing crew members. We talked to Natalie Rostow, his wife, who showed us a picture of them together, and also their 3-year-old son. We spoke to his mother. They are all very upset, not knowing what's going on. They were the first to file a lawsuit in federal court, basically to try to get the jurisdiction in their favor so that Transocean would not have the benefit in court. But they were all very upset, and they're hoping to get positive information.
About 11:30, they called my daughter-in-law to find out if that was the right contact number, and then at 2 o'clock they called her and told her that he was a missing person. It's not even words can't even describe knowing that your son's out or where he's at, and then you see him keep showing it on TV, the fire and everything, and it's a hard thing to describe.
And a lot of people are still at a hotel in Metairie. That is the main location of where the families are being held right now. So basically, Mike, the buses are going to come here. They're going to pick up the crew members, the families who aren't here to greet their crew members. They are being instructed to greet them at a hotel in Metairie. They have already been briefed as to where that is. We will keep you updated as soon as we see the guys arrive. For now, live in Port Fourchon, Lucy Bustamante, Channel 4 Eyewitness News. Mike.
All right. Thank you, Lucy. Family members are anxiously awaiting the return of their loved ones. We spoke to a wife and nephew of one of the crew members who is on the boat back and should arrive at that Metairie hotel sometime after midnight, as Lucy said. The family described the tense moments after learning about the explosion.
The only thing that I was thinking is, how am I going to tell my kids, that their dad's not coming home? And the worst goes through your mind. So we were just blessed that we did get a call.
I worked offshore, I know what it's like for a family to wonder, and this is one of the things you just hope and pray that everybody's all right. And honestly and truly, the amount of lives that's been saved, it's amazing.
Coast Guard crews have been using planes, helicopters, and boats in the search for the 11 missing crew members, and officials say that search continues at this hour. It remains the focus 24 hours after the rig explosion. Scott Satchfield has the latest.
This Coast Guard video captured the aftermath of the Deepwater Horizon's violent explosion as huge flames rose toward the sky. Tonight, almost 24 hours after the blast, with the fire still burning, Coast Guard officials say the search continues for the missing crew members.
We have no idea where the 11 people that unaccounted for personnel are at this time. We have capabilities to search throughout the night, and we continue the search and rescue case. The 11 people are unaccounted for, and we will continue the search and rescue case until it's reasonable reasonable that we might not find anybody out there.
Of the 115 crew members who are accounted for, 17 were medevaced from the scene, according to the rig operator, Transocean. Injuries included burns, smoke inhalation, and broken bones. Federal officials say the rig has been inspected 3 times in 2010, including an inspection earlier this month, but received no violations. While an investigation will begin to learn what went wrong, Transocean officials described the explosion as a well blowout.
There's undoubtedly some abnormal pressure buildup in the marine riser, which comes from the seabed, from the blowout preventer stack to the rig. And obviously hydrocarbons under pressure, gas or oil, got into the riser, and as it came up the riser, expanded rapidly and ignited.
Wednesday afternoon, BP officials did not believe the $350 million rig was leaking oil into the Gulf of Mexico, but they said as many as 7 oil spill response vessels were on standby if that changes. For now, though, officials say the focus is on finding the missing crew members. Transocean officials expressed regret over the incident.
Our thoughts and our prayers are with the crew members of the Deepwater Horizon and their families. Our greatest responsibility in Transocean is the safety and well-being of our crews, and our primary focus on this event has been on the crews.
Of the 126 crew members on board the rig at the time of the explosion, the well-being of those 11 missing people remains in question tonight. Scott Satchfield, Eyewitness News, Night Watch.
Earlier tonight, a spokesperson from the interim LSU hospital in New Orleans said 1 injured crew member was discharged, leaving only 2 crew members still hospitalized there. Family members can dial a hotline set up by Transocean for more information. That number is 832-587-8554.